welcome to the Congo Hour. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. I am Trippi, joined with my co-host with the most, Waynna. We haven't been together in a few weeks, but we are back. Waynna, I'm so mad that I missed last week's interview.
So good. And honestly, I shared this on Facebook. I was a little nervous because I really didn't know too much about it.
Right.
But they made it comfortable for me to get in.
I'm sure they did.
The one thing that I did learn though was that I love that I don't just jump on the bandwagon, picking a side. Like I heard the whole entire, both sides.
And that's best. I always tell like the staff, like people on council, I always want everybody in the room so I can hear both sides at the same time. Because if you listen to one person, they're going to convince you. If you listen to the other side separately, they're going to convince you. But once everybody's in the same room and can bounce the ideas off of each other and the facts,
you can make your
you can make your own educated decision. So
yeah,
I'm glad they finally were able to work out the timing, and so definitely kudos to both of the gentlemen who came.
Yeah, and to Dr. Coker again, because she was the one that kind of sort of initiated it.
Yeah, she did. So. I'm glad. I'm upset that I missed it, but
actually, I told them that they want to come back, so we're gonna have them come back.
Okay.
I did share with them because they brought up Councilwoman Sinead Darby.
Okay.
So I said she has to be here too, so that everyone can.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was, although it was very sensitive, very emotional.
Right.
Both of them they got along for the most part, but they still were firm in their decisions that they made.
So I've been knowing Neil for a while. He's Jones' partner.
Neighbor, yes.
His neighbor and partner.
Yes.
And then I met the other young man at one of Sinead Darby's Nate at one of her fundraisers. I could just tell from his personality.
I met him at council.
Did you? Oh, okay. I could just tell from his personality that he was, he wasn't gonna be argumentative. He wasn't going to be disrespectful, but he feels how he feels.
Right.
And I knew the same about Neil.
Right.
So I knew that it would be a great interview.
It was so good.
Okay, that's good. I can't wait for part 2.
Never dived into international politics before, so it was good.
Did they say when they want to come back on?
No, I got to kind of coordinate everybody's schedule now.
Right.
So but I'll make it sooner than later.
Okay. Yes, please.
And I'll make sure that you're here.
I will be. And tonight we're not going to disappoint either.
At all.
We're
really doing it.
Yes, back to back. So we have Misty Seemans.
Yes.
She is here. She has like 4 titles.
Yeah.
She is from, I think, the Public Office of Defense, the Public Defender's Office.
Yeah.
She is a supervisor.
Family court.
Yeah, I'm gonna let her.
Yeah, and the list goes on and on and on.
But we're gonna have a discussion about Leah Bohr. I am so excited. When I walked in and I saw it was her, I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be a good show.
See, this is what we do.
I know, because a few months ago, we'll talk about it when she's on. I don't want to talk about too much beforehand. But a few months ago, we had a
Paige Chapman.
No, before that, even before that, at council.
Oh, council.
We had I forgot what it's called. What is it, Misty? What did we have at council? When we were all in the in chambers and we were. The press conference. I know, right?
It's always the simple things. I'm thinking of something elaborate. I thought it was like some long word.
We had a press conference, and she was there, and she's awesome. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation with her.
Yes.
So I don't want to take up too much time because I really want to dedicate most of the show to her just giving us some information and how we can just be better educated around Leah Bohr and around just a lot of different topics that we're gonna touch on.
Okay. You been okay?
I've been good, just a little busy. I heard you were in Miami.
Who told you I was in Miami?
I know, you didn't. That's the crazy part.
So here's what happened. What had happened was Amber had already planned to go. So she went Friday early. So Friday afternoon, she's like, Mama, you should come. I checked the flights. I was like, okay.
On my way,
then Anaya said she want to go. So Anaya and I went down that evening. I came back Sunday. Anaya came back yesterday. And Amber's still there.
I don't blame her.
I was like, I want to go. And Anaya's going back again this weekend. I'm like, when I get 18,
That's right, she's only 18.
18, she's living her best life.
As she should.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to catch up on lost time. So
it was a good time down there?
We had a ball, the three of us laughing and joking.
Was that the first time the three of you have taken like a vacation, just the three of you?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. That's cool. Yeah, so we said we're going to do it more often. Amber gets annoyed with Princess and I because it's like we're just alike. We like the bougie divas, and Amber is like, chill. So, yeah.
So grandma, mom, and...
No, it was the three sisters.
Three sisters? Oh, the three. That's what you were telling everybody?
No, that's what people thought. I swear to you. Don't hate. Where you been doing?
I haven't been doing too much, just working. Just been busy at the office. So my dad said he was gonna try to come down this evening, but he probably won't make it. But in case he does, we might have a small segment of Sammy's Corner. He hasn't been down here
in a while.
Yeah, in a while, so he might make it down. So we'll see.
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right, we are going to take a
very quick break.
Yeah, really quick break, and we will be right back with Misty Seemans.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware. We are digital platform innovators. And we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Welcome back to the show. We are like really excited. We're going like back to back with great shows. So we're going to want to go right into it?
Yeah, we have to.
Oh, but let's give some backdrop.
Okay, so probably, this time last year, maybe a little bit before. I don't think it's been quite a year. We had a press conference at City Council, and it was around police reform, specifically like the Wilmington Police. And there were a lot of people who were for it, of course, a lot of people who are against it, and there were just some people from the Public Defender's Office who really just came through fearlessly and just spoke the truth. And I was just so, I was so thankful. Really, I was impressed, I was thankful, because a lot of times people in certain positions, they kind of shy away from the topics around, police reform, and because it can, agitate a lot of people, a lot of very important and influential people and groups. So when Misty came, and she was just, the way she spoke was just so, like I said, fearless, and I was just like in awe, honestly. And just to hear her talk about some of the things that she talked about for Black and brown people, and she's not Black and brown, but to be an advocate and just be somebody who is just speaking the truth was definitely a breath of fresh air. And I'm glad that when I walked in, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be good. Yes, I was really excited, because it's something that we just have to talk about as leaders, as me as a politician. I don't think that we can shy away from some of the things that we're going to talk about this evening if we ever expect to have any type of meaningful change. Right. And we have to be, I think at the end of the day, elected officials have to be brave enough to have the conversation and brave enough to vote the way that we know that we should vote, and not worry about the police being disappointed in us, not worried about certain groups being disappointed in us and not supporting us politically. It's like it's way bigger than us. Right. Like if we ever expect to make some real change.
Or worrying about the administration.
Right, and it's, if people, we get into politics, I think, for good reasons, but sometimes over time we become influenced and we kind of shy away from conversations like this. And I just think that hopefully tonight will be the beginning or continuation of conversations that we just have to have everywhere, in homes, at work, in political environments, just everywhere, because I know at the end of the day, people who have had the faith in us to elect us need us to have these conversations. So I'm just excited about.
Yeah, so before we go, I want to thank Paige Chapman because she came on the show and we talked about a few things dealing with the court system and black and brown people. She was outstanding as well.
She was. Oh, yeah.
But however, when you you wanted to switch the conversation, she was like, she has the best person for that. So Misty is she. She is that woman.
Yeah,
so,
she is her, right?
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
So you ready?
Yes, I am. Hopefully our audience is also.
Yes.
All right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, and I was trying to give you just give our viewing audience a little bit of your background, but I know you wear several hats. So if you don't mind just sharing with the audience who you represent, like your space and your background.
So I grew up in the suburbs of Wilmington, Delaware, and I went to Cab Calloway School of the Arts here in Wilmington. I also had overlap at the time with Wilmington High School, which was still there.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And so graduated from Cab Calloway School of the Arts and then went on to college in upstate New York and law school in Washington, D.C. I have worked as a newspaper reporter, a newspaper editor, a press secretary for a United States senator. I have, since law school, worked at the Delaware Public Defender's Office here in Wilmington, and I have done every single type of case you can imagine. I have done everything from traffic offenses to DUIs to robberies and burglaries to murder in the first degree. My very first trial as a co-counsel was a capital murder trial here in Wilmington, and you're kind of thrown into the frying pan, which I really like about our office. Actually, it was a really great learning experience. So I have worked through the Public Defender's Office for the past 10 years, and I am now supervisor of our family court unit, and our family court unit represents all children charged with crimes and all misdemeanor offenses with adults involving family members or intimate partners. So we do that work every single day, and I really enjoy my caseload of family court cases, and then of course the kind of more serious felonies I've handled. But then I also do some of our policy work, and my particular area is police reform. And I've been working on that for at least the past 4 years.
Okay. All right. What does police reform mean to you and to your office?
Well, so if I can give a little bit of background on it. So what had happened was I would just speak to my clients about their cases, and names kept popping up from different people. So the same names of the same police officers were popping up from different clients who didn't know each other. And it started to get my interest piqued, and I started to get suspicious. And so then there started to be more things that came to my attention, either at trial, where officers were not telling the truth in sworn testimony, or there was some sort of problem with that police officer regarding their misconduct, and I just got more and more suspicious. So when the murder of George Floyd happened in May of 2020, I thought to myself, what can I do in this moment? And so my colleague Elliot Margulies, John Alfredo, and I started to work on a document to give to the legislature saying, here are 11 things we can do that would actually make a difference regarding police reform. And one of the biggest things in Delaware that I hope that people have heard of by now is Delaware's Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, or LEOBOR. And LEOBOR in Delaware was one of the most secretive police misconduct laws in the country. So back in 1985, police officers in Delaware asked for a Bill of Rights. And basically it's just true. They have the most due process of any Delaware citizen. They have special super due process where if they're being investigated about something, they have all of these additional rights under the Bill of Rights in Delaware since 1985. The strange thing that happened is that Rodney King beating happened in 1991. And before 1991, there was the Bill of Rights, but there was no confidentiality clause, i.e. police misconduct was public. So in 1991, when Rodney King beating happened, and for people that may not know, it was a black man was beat by the police in California, and someone just happened to have a video camera, not a cell phone, an old-fashioned video camera, and videotaped it. And it went, we didn't have the word for it at the time, but it went viral. Everyone found out about it. Well, instead of, in my opinion, being concerned about police misconduct, what happened instead in Delaware was they introduced a confidentiality clause trying to make police misconduct secret. So that actually was vetoed by the governor and did not make it into law and was not supported by the Delaware Department of Justice. But over the next several years, it eventually did become law. And Delaware, again, in my opinion, got the worst and most secretive police misconduct law in the country, where all police misconduct records became secret. The year after it passed, there was a carve-out for civil attorneys, and civil attorneys are people who sue for damages. So if a civil attorney is suing the police for damages or physical injury caused by the police, they get the police misconduct records, and that was it. So public defenders and criminal defense attorneys who are representing people facing so much time in prison and sometimes the rest of their lives, and also at one point the death penalty, were not entitled to these records.
So you could be in court trying, and a police officer was involved, and you wouldn't have access to their record, to their.
No, and there's only 2 carve-outs for criminal defense attorneys that I knew about up until 2023. One was something called Brady versus Maryland that everyone should know about. Brady versus Maryland is a United States Supreme Court case that says if the prosecutor knows about exculpatory material, which means stuff that means someone might be innocent, or might impeach, which means you can, a witness might have a credibility issue, or if that evidence just exists, the prosecutor needs to turn that over. That has been a challenge. We do not get very many police misconduct records that process, even though it's my opinion we're entitled to them. The second way we've gotten them under Delaware law is if I can establish a factual predicate that a police officer has engaged in misconduct, then I can have access to his file eventually. But it's a catch-22. If we have the most secretive record law in the country, how am I going to know? And there's even a case from the city of Wilmington in the early 2000s where a Wilmington police officer was accused of rape, and the Department of Justice could not get access to his police misconduct records and had to go through that process I just explained. The factual predicate being he was accused of rape. And there was tons of stuff in his file. And that kind of goes to one of my arguments is, I do believe where there's smoke, there's fire. And when it eventually gets to the newspaper, I think that there's examples and arguments that there's been misconduct for a very long time that's been swept under the carpet because it's been able to be secret.
So what can we do to change that?
Well, in 2023, the Delaware legislature passed 2 bills, HB 205 and HB 206. And HB 205 is a police misconduct law, and HB 206 is a police accountability law. And both laws, respectfully, did not go far enough. So I believe that if we can have better Delaware law on granting access and public access and attorney access to police misconduct records, at least more than we have now, if not everything, substantiated and unsubstantiated. And if we can have true police accountability, where a police accountability group can have subpoena power to actually truly investigate police misconduct, I think we're getting on a better course. One of the things I say to people is, if I told you right now that police misconduct was public in Delaware, and you could have access to it, and then all of a sudden the police unions came forward and said, no, we want to change the law, we want to make it all secret, I don't think people would support that. And so why are we keeping a bad law in the books when we do have the power, and I think the public support here to get the law changed in a better direction? Why, when something terrible happens, when Rodney King is beat, do we want to pass a secrecy law? why, when one more bad thing after another happens, do we keep moving in the wrong direction rather than, I think, in a more transparent and accountable direction?
So FOIA, I apologize, FOIA wouldn't help out with that law?
Well, it's a good question. So Delaware's Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, allows access to some records. But because there's a confidentiality clause still under Delaware law, it was not struck in last year's legislative changes. You cannot have access. The only thing the public has access now are two things. The first is narrative reports. And so the police, this is where it's kind of set up to fail, right? The police get to investigate police misconduct. And so if the police decide to investigate police misconduct and reach a result, which they now have to, if they begin it, they have to finish it. If it's certain type of misconduct, dishonesty, excessive use of force, involving serious physical injury, there's different carve-out categories. Then eventually the police have to write a narrative report summarizing what happened and their findings, and that should be made public. As of me sitting in front of you today at the end of February 2024, I don't know of one narrative report that has been publicly posted. The law passed in June of 2023, and it was signed by the governor in August of 2023. Not one narrative report. And then the other way is victims, if they make a complaint against the police before June of 2023 or August of 2023, they were not entitled to anything. So if you made a complaint against the police, on your best day you got some sort of letter that said it's been substantiated or unsubstantiated, meaning it either we think it happened, we agree, or it didn't happen. That was it. They didn't find out discipline or how the investigation went. And now victims of police complaints are entitled to know a little bit more information. So those are the only two ways right now.
Okay.
Not
so
FOIA.
You mentioned earlier about review boards and their, I guess when the public hears about a police review board, I think automatically the public thinks, oh, this is a great thing, because they're going to have the authority to actually review and have access to information and share it with us. But that's not the case, right?
The police, they're supposed to be under HB 206 police accountability boards on some sort of level, state, county, local. It can take different forms.
Okay.
But they have limited investigative powers. So they don't have subpoena power, they don't have discipline power. However, they can do so many things that I do encourage members of the community to involve themselves with. Newcastle County has established a police accountability board under HB 206. I would say they have gone in the direction of making, I think, the best model possible they can.
That was recent, right?
Very recent, yes. Under the current Delaware law, and I think that's because they engaged the community. Community advocates were involved in the process of creating that, and County Executive Matt Meyer and his policy director Brian Boyle, and then the community advocates from NAACP, Delaware Center for Justice, American Civil Liberties Union, my office, all were involved in creating a board that would really try to do everything it could. And I would really encourage people, don't get discouraged. If you don't live in Wilmington or if you don't live in Newcastle County, you should talk to your local elected officials about creating their board and getting involved, because there are models all across the country that may not have certain powers, but they can still do a lot, like reviewing policies, writing a report, holding the police accountable under the law, under the new laws, HB 205 and 206. There's a lot they can do. It's not as far as it should be, but that doesn't mean don't do it. Right. Having the community involved in police accountability is such a crucial part of knowing who is able to use force under the law in our streets, in our backyards, in our communities, in our schools. And so I think it's an important part that members of the community should engage in.
So for people out there who may not agree that there should be total transparency, like what are some of their arguments?
Okay. I think that things that we've heard have been, well, there's not that many bad apples. The police are taking care of it. We are handling this. You just have to trust us. And I think there are a lot of good police officers, but there are many examples of bad police misconduct in Delaware that have hit the paper, let alone what we don't know about. And I've heard that argument, and I just don't simply agree with it.
Right, not at all.
There's also a national survey of police officers by the Pew Research Group that found that 72% of police officers do not believe that other bad police officers are held accountable. So this isn't just me saying it, it's the police. And I know that I have my position as a public defender, and it's a complete honor to represent my clients. So I know that the police may not want me to say this, but I do believe that good police want good police, because their lives are also on the line. And when you have a police officer who is a little too hot-headed with a gun, or doesn't tell the truth, or a case can't be prosecuted because the officer has a reputation for dishonesty, that hurts other good cops that are really trying to protect our communities.
Right.
That's true. I want our audience to know, because you're a public defender, do you have to have like no money to come to you, or is there a income
Like a scale
or something?
So we represent 85% of people charged with crimes in Delaware, and there is an income level, and it's the poverty line, but it is an older number. I think it's $500 a week. If you make
a week?
$500 or less a week, then you're entitled to a public defender in Delaware as an adult. All children, no matter what your family situation is, are entitled to a public defender. But that said, we try to represent as many people as we can. And again, it's an honor and a privilege to do so. So that is our responsibility here in Delaware.
So police officers out there who want to do the right thing. I know I've been president of council almost 4 years now, and a lot of officers, enough officers have come to me, wanting to shed light on officers who don't always do the right thing. But it's extremely difficult for them. Like most 99% of them want to talk, only will speak on, if I don't mention any names, because they have families to support, I understand that, but they still don't like to be a part of a system that they know needs to be fixed. Have you encountered that a lot? Just officers who just don't know how to, don't know how to move in that space where they see misconduct, but they just don't know what to do and how to do it.
Yes, and it is very, very hard for them to come forward in a public way to address their concerns, which is also, quite honestly, sad.
It is. It's very sad, because there are adults. These are like grown men and women who fear retaliation, and it's almost as bad as some of the things that they're witnessing, because they don't know how to report their colleagues, because they know there's going to be retaliation. They may get fired. They may not get promotions that they're entitled to, and they just don't know how to. They don't know how to.
Pension.
Yeah, it's just a lot there's a lot of pressure, and it's very, very sad that you have these adults who feel trapped and just don't know, trapped by a system that so many people who they're hired by, so many people in the public feel trapped too, because they just there's no how do we get out of this? You think how do we get out of this situation that we're in right now? If you can wave a magic wand, who can make a change?
I think that actually is a really good argument for why we need full transparency for the public and for attorneys, which is if it was just public, we would know. And I believe that substantiated claims and unsubstantiated claims should be public.
How come?
Well, there's examples all across the country of eventually the person with several unsubstantiated claims their luck runs out.
Right.
And if there's a video, or they get caught, or whatever it is. One example is there is this television show on HBO called We Own This City. And it's a TV show by the guys who made The Wire. And it's based upon what really happened in Baltimore. There was this jump out squad. And President Congo knows how I feel about jump out squads. They're bad. Jump out squads are police groups that are basically the guys who kind of, in my opinion, work for a police department, and avoid constitutional protections as much as possible to just get stuff off the streets. They don't necessarily are concerned about what happens with the case as long as they got the stuff off.
Right.
So they'll search everyone in a group of men standing out on a street corner. They'll go into a house with a search warrant and then get a search warrant later. They're called jump out squads. We've had them for a very long time. In Wilmington, for instance, they've come under a lot of different names. But they had a jump out squad in Baltimore, and one of the worst officers who eventually was criminally charged, had over 20 unsubstantiated complaints.
Okay.
And when you read U.S. Department of Justice reports on failed police departments, you will see that there are so many police officers who are eventually involved in that thing that makes national press that had unsubstantiated complaint after unsubstantiated complaint, and now they eventually got caught. And that's what I get concerned about too, because remember, it's the fox guarding the hen house.
Right. That's the biggest
And I'm
problem.
not the only one saying that. Back in, we pulled the recordings from 1985 and from 1991 legislative sessions, and former Wilmington Mayor James Sills said the same thing when he was a state rep. Why are you making the police the foxes guarding the hen house?
Right.
They decide if you engage in substantiated misconduct or not.
Exactly.
And so that's why I think unsubstantiated should be public. And in other states where it's been public, there was a survey done of police officers in other states where unsubstantiated and substantiated is public. Some states both, some states just substantiated. There were no acts of retaliation against the police regarding any sort of physical retaliation, except one state there was one instance in all these years, someone who verbally said something, but no acts of physical retaliation. So why not make unsubstantiated public, especially when it involves police officers who, again, are allowed to pull a firearm and use it against a member of our community. It is the toughest, most challenging, most powerful, in my opinion, position in our government. And we should make sure that those individuals either have a clean bill of health or not. And I also want to say, and I know, I think you might agree with me, President Congo, I don't want to speak for you, but if you look at our different budgets in Delaware, local, county, state, some of the highest percentages of our budgets are going to the police.
That's true.
So
Yeah, like
why
60%,
aren't taxpayers entitled to what's going on with their police department? I think it's just a natural expectation that we should know what is going on, especially when it involves misconduct. And I'm talking about lying, sexual harassment, racial harassment, bias, hate speech, crimes committed, DUIs, domestic violence. These are not things I think are controversial. These are things that I think the public has a right to know.
And right now, the public doesn't have access to any of those crimes you just mentioned.
Only narrative reports regarding, I would consider it 6 different areas, like dishonesty, use of force involving serious physical injury. So let me give you an example. So this is where the law, there's a loophole. There's loopholes under the new law that passed. I don't know if you remember the case of a Wilmington police officer who slammed a man's head against a wall in a corner store, I think in Southbridge.
Yes.
The only reason we know about it is because it was caught on a store surveillance tape. He was eventually criminally prosecuted by the Delaware Department of Justice. Any misconduct records he has regarding lying about slamming the man's head against the corner store wall would be in the narrative report. It could be argued that the actual excessive use of force would not be eligible for the narrative report because it wasn't serious physical injury. So those are the types of things where when you kind of follow the police misconduct we're seeing, what would we be entitled to? There was a man who gave the middle finger to the Delaware State Police, which he is entitled to do. It's the First Amendment. The only reason we know about it is because he sued. And on the dash camera, the police were like, I think he's allowed to get away with it, but let's charge him with some trumped up charges anyway.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
Yep.
Would that be dishonesty? Would that be intentional dishonesty, which is what criminal defense counsel are entitled to under the new law? So there's how things are classified and overlapping bad behavior happens, and then the question becomes, is the public entitled to that? And shouldn't we be?
Yes, most definitely. The narrative is written by the police.
Yes.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it just comes down to legislators being able to create laws that would allow the public, allow the court systems to have access to the history of police officers, right? So that's what it comes down to, state legislators, right?
Yes.
Right, so if you could speak into, say, a state legislator is watching right now, what would you say to that legislator?
I would say that I think we need to make police misconduct laws and police accountability laws more transparent and accountable. And I would specifically ask that the next step be granting the same access to criminal defense counsel that the civil bar gets.
Okay.
So your viewers may remember I talked about the fact that there's a confidentiality clause for police misconduct files, unless you're suing the police for money or damages.
Okay.
As a criminal defense attorney, I, under the new law from 2023, am only entitled to acts of intentional dishonesty, whatever that means, right? I'll figure it out in court.
Right.
And so,
And good luck with that.
I think that criminal defense counsel should have the same access as civil attorneys, and it will be treated the same way as everything else we get. I get autopsy records, victim medical histories, photos of crime scenes, and I treat those with respect. I would give the same respect to police misconduct records, just like I do everything else. And I don't think that is controversial, and perhaps I'm naive. So that's the next step to me. Because the other thing is, in Delaware, I know that there are innocent people locked up in prison for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm not just saying that. Again, a national study was done, and 54% of those that have been wrongly convicted, those cases involved government misconduct. 35% of innocent people who were wrongly convicted involved police misconduct. And so I would argue that a criminal defense counsel should know whether there's a history of lying, a history of excessive force, a history of misconduct, a history of trumped up charges, so that they can properly vet the case and see whether that officer is going to testify. Officers are usually, or sometimes the only witness, oftentimes the only witness, and those officers' credibility is incredibly crucial to whether my client is found guilty or not.
Right.
And I think we have another big problem, if I may, which is body-worn cameras. They're great, but we need to make sure officers are turning them on.
Right.
And I would suggest that also opening up misconduct files and knowing whether police officers are actually turning on their cameras, turning on the audio, is also an important part of making sure our officers are protecting our communities in a transparent and accountable way.
So right now, they don't body-worn cameras aren't activated automatically in some instances? Or? No?
They have to physically turn them on.
Yes.
Okay.
And they may accidentally forget.
I mean, is that intentional dishonesty? I don't know. I will say that, there was a man who was shoplifting allegedly at Lowe's in August of 2023, and he was shot and killed by the police, and they did not have their body-worn cameras.
I remember that.
I don't even know the names of those officers yet. Shot and killed over shoplifting.
Yeah, I remember that.
And no body cam footage?
No.
No, they were not wearing body camera footage.
They weren't wearing them?
Even though the law says they should have them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was state?
State police, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Trippi, this year is an election year. So I want to encourage our viewers, when you're voting for your state legislator, ask them these questions. Just don't vote because you know their name or they're your neighbor or whatever the case may be. Ask these hard questions before you go into the booth and vote for someone.
What are some of the responses, if you've ever had conversations with state legislators? And I say state because it's on that level where these kind of decisions are made. City council doesn't really, we don't have that kind of authority, unfortunately, but it happens on the state level. Like, what are some of the responses, if you've ever had a conversation with any state legislator about why they don't take it to the next level, next step? Like, what are they saying? How come they don't? If they even engage in a conversation. I'm not sure if they do or not.
They have, and I appreciate those conversations. And I want to say also to Wilmington City Council and to your leadership, President Congo, when we asked to meet with you to talk to you about the problems that we have seen with police misconduct, you met with us, you listened, and you did something about it, and you spoke out publicly. And I think you took a risk in doing that, and I really commend your bravery in that, because it really meant something to meet with an elected official who heard us and then did something to follow up on that promise that was made. So I really appreciate that.
No, I thank you for you and your team's support. And before, I'm gonna let you answer that question, but I want to go back to that after you answer the question about the state legislators.
Yeah, so the state legislators, we have had really amazing conversations with several state legislators who hear us and want to support us. The pushback has been especially there's a large, I think, trust in the police, which I understand, but I feel like time and time again, the things that get to the level of the newspaper happen. There was a point in time where every single week there was an arrest of a police officer or some sort of misconduct alleged. And it seems that there has been, from the legislators who really support the police, almost a blindness towards what is in the newspaper. Okay. As a person who deals with this issue every day, the client who comes and says, this terrible thing happened to me, my house was searched without a warrant, they jumped out on me and all of my friends, they keep stopping me over and over and over again and I have nothing. To me, it does feel like it's a bigger problem than the legislators that don't get those phone calls every day.
Okay.
And so my weakness is trying to figure out a way to communicate that in a way where legislators understand that this is not just Misty hearing these stories. People tell me the story so I can tell you, but it is a larger issue than I think gets to that level, because people are so afraid of what will happen to them if they talk to their legislator about it or go to the police and complain about it. And so that has been my I think something I could do a better job of, is how to make this more relatable to people that have never experienced or hear all the time about police misconduct.
Okay. Have you been labeled anti-police?
I think the police have called me that, and I'm not anti-police.
Right.
I think that the work that our police do when they are doing a good job, and the good officers, is, again, the hardest and most challenging profession that we have in the state. So I do not agree with being called anti-police. I think that it is something that is said to weaken the arguments that I am making.
Right.
And I think it's a deflection tactic to try to silence my voice.
Right.
And respectfully, it's not going to work.
Right, and I asked that, but I already knew the answer, because that's the same thing has happened to me. When I make the kind of statements that I make around police misconduct, now all of a sudden I'm anti-police. I've never been. Ever since I've been on council, whenever the police had an opportunity to endorse me or my opponent, like they always endorse me, and I've always supported them. But at the same time, I just can't sit by blindly and watch things happen that I know that people who have entrusted me to talk about, and I have to talk about it. And that makes me, I think it's very unfair that we're labeled that, because I've always been very supportive, but I'm not going to be silent. I'm going to do what I think is right. And it's just interesting that, like, police officers are saying that I'm anti-police, and I've never been, but I'm just speaking up about things that they come to me, like some of their colleagues. Like, I'm not making these stories up. Like you said, your clients come to you and tell you stories. Like, there are officers who come and tell me these stories because they know I'm not gonna say who, I'm not gonna say it was them, and they know I'm gonna talk about it in a public forum where hopefully some change can happen. But as soon as I started doing that, it's like I'm anti-police. I'm like, what?
So maybe those that consider you that are the ones that need to be looked after.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's just it was kind of not funny, but it's just like it's sad that that's the tactic that's used, like you said, Misty, just to kind of weaken my stance or weaken some of the statements that I've made around police misconduct, whether it's within the police department or with the community. Now it's like I'm anti-cop, and I've never been. I'm not. Like you said, there are great cops, But it's a tough conversation, and I think we have to have that tough conversation. That's why we're here. That's why you're hired. That's why I've been elected, to be able to have these conversations where, you know, we have to help people understand that we have to keep going.
I want to say this to both of you, and I don't remember. I know it was someone old from years ago. Like, it's not what people call you; it's what you answer to.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't let it bother me at all. It's just. It's kind of sad that that's a tactic that's used, like so they can, like you said. I think you put it perfectly when you said to weaken our you know, our statements or our stance.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
anything else you want? We went over a lot. I know you could probably go on for another 3 days.
I would ask, you know, if I may, of your viewers, just a few things. I am pushing for a bill to increase access to criminal defense counsel to the same records that civil counsel get. And so I would ask your viewers to support that. It sounds wonky and it sounds like, how does that impact me? But it impacts people who are facing their life in prison or a lot of time in prison. And I think it's an important next step to move that forward. And I might be naive, I don't think it's controversial to have attorneys get access to the same things civil attorneys get and prosecutors get. Why are we left out of it? I would also ask...
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I'm thinking
all.
after you said it that one time, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
So say that one more time,
whatsoever.
please, just so make sure that sinks in with our viewing audience.
If people can hope that their legislators, ask their legislators to support legislation to allow criminal defense counsel to have the same access to police misconduct records that civil attorneys suing for damages or prosecutors have, that's my next ask. That's the next step. And then I'm hoping that there's going to be more legislation trying to get us in the right direction on this.
Okay.
I would also ask...
So right now, I hate to cut you off. So right now, so you're a lawyer. So right now, you don't have access to information that another lawyer who was hired, say if I came to you and I needed you to be my public defender, Waynna went to another lawyer and she hired that lawyer. She was able to hire that lawyer. That her lawyer would have more access than you would. Is that what you're saying? Or
so what like an overlap might happen where the police beat up my client.
Okay.
And I will not have access to those police officers' misconduct records.
Okay.
But if that client hires a private lawyer to sue the cops for being beat up, they will get access to all of the records. And so that's where it gets, that's where I think inequality happens. Straight up inequality and unfairness.
Because you have to have money to be able to.
Well, you can hire, if you get beat up by the police, you can usually hire a lawyer, and if they win, they'll get some money. So I don't want people who feel like they've been the victim of misconduct to feel like they can't get a lawyer. You can. But public defenders and private criminal defense attorneys do not have access to things except for the three things I told you about before. Brady, factual predicate, or the very limited access under HB 205. The other thing I would ask your viewers to engage in, if they're interested, is really stay on top of their local community's police accountability board. It is a common practice in other major cities to have these things. They're not unheard of. And if the community engages, it will only be better. And so make sure your community is setting it up, make sure you're going to the meetings, sign up to be on it if you feel like that's the right choice for you, and hold the police accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. There is no narrative report that has been published so far since August of 2023. When will officially the police office on standardized training called POST be set up, which was supposed to be set up under HB 206? Where is their public website? So I think holding the police accountable to these things, and then just staying on top of your legislators and your elected officials to make sure they are moving us forward on this. Rather than keeping the status quo and saying, oh, we're done, there's a little bit more access now. I don't think it's true access, and I think that there's a lot of loopholes that will prevent the public from getting what I think they're entitled to as taxpayers.
Okay.
How
can people contact you? What's your office's number? How can people get in touch with
you
or someone from your office?
My direct number is 302-255-0133. They can call me directly. If they've had an experience with the police, they can call me and I can try to put them in the right direction. It does help to know whether there are things happening in the community that also might have happened to my client.
Right.
And so I am happy to talk to anyone who has had an issue and see if I can try to help in any way.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, see, told you.
You were right.
Yep, I knew.
I didn't doubt it. I mean, I didn't have any doubt whatsoever, but you were right, Trippi.
Yeah, I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
And thank you to Paige Chapman, who is a delight and a fantastic, intelligent, terrific lawyer in my office who recommended that this might be a good place to kind of talk about police misconduct. We've worked with really, really terrific lawyers, and I hope that the public defender image is going in the right direction here, because we truly believe in this work.
Yeah, I want to thank you again, because I hear and I feel your sincerity with dealing with Black and brown people. So thank you so very much. I truly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for writing my statement. So I got up doing
What
this
statement?
So doing this press conference, right? Doing the press conference.
Oh, you got a ghostwriter.
Oh yeah, she and her team, they put it together for me. I got the credit, I guess, because I was brave enough for maybe to say it publicly, but I mean, that all came from you and your team. So thank you, because they gave me the facts. They pretty much, all I did was like read it.
And I think you got like everyone in the room applauded you. I mean, that was the biggest moment, was his speech.
They applauded you through me.
They threw you like a single red rose at the end, actually.
No, but thank you for that, because I think it was very impactful, and it put our police department on notice. It put council on notice, and I think it helped our community to know that we are listening, that we're engaged, and we're just not going to sit silent. So thank you for your help, and I know you're going to be there for the community. You'll be there for us as council. So I just want to thank you in advance.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
All right.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. So, Waynna, another great show. Hopefully our viewing audience will get engaged. I think that is the biggest thing that I hope that
She's gonna
that
have
is
to call.
taken.
I'm sorry. She's gonna have to get an assistant to answer the phone calls, because I know her phone is gonna be flooded.
Hopefully it will. I think if you take anything from today's conversation, I hope that you become engaged and just kind of getting the understanding of what we were talking about, and how at the end of the day we can only talk about it with so much and so often, but we really need you to be engaged and engage your elected officials, and especially your state elected officials, to just to bring some resolve to some of the issues that Misty was talking about tonight. So give her a call. If you still need her number, you can reach out to Waynna. You can leave a message.
It's going to be up on the screen. They
It's
don't have
going
to
to be on the
reach out
screen.
to
That's
me.
right.
It's going to be up on the screen.
All right. And if you're not comfortable, sometimes I know people may be more comfortable talking with you or talking with me. You can leave us a message, and we can kind of be the liaison between you and the public defender's office.
So my phone number is 302-521-7325.
All right, and mine is 302-521-7325. So we have the same number. So just if I give you my number, I probably won't answer it.
You
so
won't.
It's
Probably you
it's
won't.
best to
I was
call.
here and saying, you give your number. Like, please
It's
don't
best to call.
Trippi.
It's best to call Waynna. You can have my number, but you'll have better luck getting in touch with Waynna. All right. Thank you for watching this evening. And God willing, we will see you next week.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good night.